Good morning, everyone. Hello, hello. I hope you can see us and hear us, or at least hear me at the moment. Let me stop sharing my screen. Hopefully, can you still see my screen? I don't know. There we go. Stop share. It's not like I've done this a million times, is it? Good morning, everyone. I'm Chrissa. I'm the founder of Sunshine Support, as you probably know. And we've got a very, very important live stream for you this morning because we know there is a lot of hype around the Send White Paper and a lot of confusion, a lot of overwhelm. But we know we have to take action. So we're going to be calming everything down this morning, but also giving you some important bits to look at and think about. And it's going to be a busy, busy session full of neurodivergence. So buckle up because it's going to get lovely and chatty. So if you're watching, we're live across YouTube and Facebook. Please do say hello. Let us know where you're watching from, and let us know if you took part in any of the rallies that happened on the weekend, because we were at one, and we'll be talking about that shortly. But do let us know if you attended any, because I loved the social media hype, and I'm loving all the pictures and videos and the passion. So let us know if you were at one, and let us know how it went. But I think it's really important before we get going that we just pause for a moment with all of this chaos and just take stock of everything, because things have become very, very loud over the last couple of weeks. I mean, they were loud anyway, but they've become really loud recently. And there's a huge amount of concern and fear and confusion. And I think a lot of families and teachers are trying to work out at the moment, what's actually happening? Is it going to affect my kids? Do I need to do something? I don't know. It's a lot. So we're going to cover this a lot this morning. And I am delighted because I have guests. I always like you when I've got people to share the screen with. Otherwise, I just feel like I'm rambling up myself. I'm joined by Natalie and Tracy this morning. Morning, ladies. How are you?
Good morning. Living our best lives, I'm sure.
Good morning.
Good morning. So we're going to do some introductions just so we understand your backgrounds and sort of what you're bringing to the conversation this morning and why you're so passionate. So Natalie, do you want to start us off and let us know who you are? And I feel like I'm on blind date. Who you are, where you come from.
I'm Natalie. I'm a mom of two wonderful boys. My youngest is currently in year 6. And he started to kind of struggle probably right from the beginning, actually, if I'm honest, at school in a mainstream environment. But unfortunately, as he transitioned from year 2 to year 3, it became a very bumpy ride for us, and has subsequently ended up no longer being able to attend a school environment. I set up, I felt very lonely where I live. I'm in the Midlands, and I set up kind of a workshops group where we would invite professionals to kind of come and do talks to parents in the evenings, because again, I thought that was kind of lacking. Lots of stuff was going on in the day, but obviously if you've got children at home, that's really difficult to access, or even at work. And so I do that locally once a month, and we get kind of a speaker come, and it's really lovely. And we've kind of created a nice little sort of network of parents that access that. So yeah, that's a bit about me.
It's fabulous. That's exactly what I did with Sunshine to start with.
Oh, really?
Yeah, in Derby, because I was just so fed up of feeling so lonely and
Yeah.
alienated. You feel like we're the only people going through this, and it's quite
Yeah.
scary. But I think it's amazing when, because there's lots of people like us where they're setting up these lovely information sessions and support networks for people, and they're honestly, it can be a real lifeline for so many of us to know that that's the thing we look forward to every month.
Yeah.
And that you
And
don't
we
have,
meet in a pub, you see. So
oh,
sometimes you can have, a little beverage,
oh,
or you can have a cup of tea. It's entirely up to you. So that's
no
quite nice.
judgment. Just have a
Yeah.
mug of vodka. It's all
Yeah.
good. It's all good. No judgment.
Yeah, exactly.
I love that. Thank you so much for being here this morning.
You're welcome.
And Tracy, would you like to tell us a bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. I'm Tracy Winchester. I'm a son parent with a dog barking in the background. And I was saying just before we started, keeping it real, I've got 2 kids at home doing EOTAS, so education other than at school. One is 11, one 14, nearly 15, and I don't know where the years have gone, but there we go. So yeah, both have been failed, you know, as they do through the system. All both started mainstream, tick the box, didn't work predictably. Both tried specialist even, and my son, to be fair, you know, lots of big patches out of school, and in the end, the OTAS was just the only thing. After we got off-rolled, I lose count how many times, because we were just, so my son has a demand avoidance or PDA profile, and yeah, there just isn't anything for those kids really, to be honest. So he's been much happier. We've been doing the OTAS for him for about 4 years, or maybe we're going into 5, so I don't know, I lose track. Once you're just in that zone, don't you just keep going. And you know, he was so traumatized. We couldn't even say school for years. We couldn't talk about learning, couldn't, you know, all that sort of stuff. But in this sort of last year, he's got a teacher that he's connecting with, and he's doing a bit of academic stuff again, which to be honest, I didn't think I'd see. So that's marvelous. My daughter sort of similarly, just very, very sensory, and just can't cope with the world really, to be quite honest, you know, out there. So it's safe here, and we do stuff here, and she's just got to that point where she's getting over some of the trauma, and she's starting to feel safe enough to reach out a bit, which is great. So when I'm allowed out the house, I also I'm an occupational therapist by profession. My main background is mental health and brain injury, it was, but yeah, don't really get to do much of that anymore, apart from in an informal way, I guess. So I try to tick my CPD boxes by doing all this voluntary stuff that I do as well. So much like Natalie, I started a support group, I think it's about 10 years ago now, basically because I went to one, but I still remember it now. And the third one, they said, it was run by Autism West Midlands at the time, and they said, "Oh, we've lost the funding, so either you take it over or it goes." And I was like, only by the third session, I could already feel how valuable it was going to be, and I just couldn't let it happen. So myself and at the time, another couple of parents, but one of which still runs it with me, we still run it. So sort of, it was autism parent support, it was sort of called at the beginning, but now, you know, obviously our knowledge has grown along with the community, and yeah, we've got over 1,000 members now. It's crazy. And then it's sort of in the background there was bubbling, so I was involved with the original Send National Crisis movement back in sort of 2018, 2019, and it's carried on with the group after doing the demos even back then. So I've been at it for a while, and that as well has grown exponentially, and that's, I think we're about 1,500 members with that. And it's just, so I sort of have my campaigning hat on, but also sort of supporting, sort of doing all that. But like you guys have already said, to be honest, the main thing that personally I got out of it is I found my tribe. I found other mums and dads, that we all kind of get each other, and I really felt that. I know we're talking a bit about it at the rally, because I had my little crew of parents, you know, that came with me, and then also we went to a DFE event as well, which I'm sure we'll get to as well in a bit, on Monday, and there was a little crew of us, and yeah, we went as little mini troublemakers, and yeah, but we all kind of had each other's backs, which was lovely. So yeah, that's just a little bit anyway, you know. I'll shut up now.
No, I love it, honestly. And one of the things I've got from both of you this morning, and it's something the three of us share, is that it doesn't stop. It doesn't start with our child. It doesn't stop with our child, because we have this passion of feeling, well, it's that connection. Like you said, you found your tribe, but you want others to also feel like they found their tribe and feel seen and validated. And I think, you know, the power of parent support groups, however that is, whether they're big national groups or whether they're small individual ones in the village hall, whatever it may be, the power of that is that we do feel seen, because all three of us, I know we've chatted already this morning about feeling so alone before we did this, and knowing that others felt the same. It's that loneliness, and that's what we're hoping to achieve out of this morning, is that whoever's watching feels connected to us and the topics that we're raising. And hopefully, you at home or school or wherever you're watching from, your car, as you're waiting to go and pick your child up again, because I know that I've been there as well, where I'm like, I'll sit outside in the car because I'm not going to get very far before they ring me. I hope you feel connected, and I hope you feel less alone. And I think one of the big things for us today is that we cut through the noise and we understand, looking at the community, you guys are really well connected, and we're really well connected here, and we're seeing on the forefront there why people are so concerned, because this isn't all about parents being dramatic. Tracy, you said you've been at this campaigning, for 10 years. I ran the Derby rally, actually, and I think it was 2019, was it?
Yeah.
Those ones. And I remember then the council workers and the cabinet members at our local council came out and started campaigning with us, saying, yeah, we want the government to give us more money. We understand that there's pressures locally, but there's only so much we can do with the money that they're allocating for us. And I thought, well, that's a really interesting point. But there are some very, very serious conversations at the moment happening. So we'll get to the Send white paper. We won't pull it apart because that's been done so much, and we've done it, other people have done it, so there's plenty of information out there. And if anybody wants to see those live streams, I know that my colleague Kelly Jarvis, who really delves into the legalities of everything and the impact in schools as well, she went into it in great detail a few months ago now. So if anybody wants a link to that, let us know, because we can send you the link. But essentially just sort of covering the bits that we are generally very concerned about. It's things like legal accountability. They're looking at reducing or removing, there's been rumours, the tribunal powers, mediation. It's that independent scrutiny. There's always that big conversation about co-production, but actually to us parents now, it looks like they just want us to be more compliant, which is not what co-production is at all. And there's, of course, a big conversation happening, and I know we're going to come to this a lot today because it's the real big thing for us, is whether we're actually being listened to. So we'll come to the Send roundtables and stuff in a second, because I've got my views on those as well. But let's first of all talk about these rallies that happened on Saturday, because let's be fair, nobody gives up their weekend to stand at a rally for hours and hours on end, and Tracy organise it for days and days and days, unless something feels deeply wrong. We don't do it for a laugh. Whilst it's very enjoyable when we're all connected, there are better ways to spend our days with our families, Now, all three of us here attended the Birmingham rally, and like I said, Tracy, you organised it. I mean, what a blooming fantastic job you did as well, because there were hundreds of people there. And what I loved was that it really grabbed the attention of the passers-by as well. So can you tell us sort of how that all came about and why it was so important to you?
To be honest, largely feels like a blur. It's amazing what can be achieved, and I think I had about 4 weeks, to arrange it. And did that initial email of just sort of volunteering my name, and to be honest, never imagining for 1 minute that it would be largely just me. So there were other volunteers that came forward, but there was for various reasons, and this is the problem really, I guess, with Send parents, we all have really busy lives and it's hard to commit to stuff. So for various reasons, other people then couldn't go forward with it. And I remember having a conversation with Rachel Filmer, who's involved with this, but I'd come across her with doing a separate sort of focus group for something in the background, and thinking, oh, I don't know, am I going to manage this? Because just as many of us do as well, I've got my own sort of health issues. I've got I've got chronic Lyme disease. I'll give a little plug to that, because that's another thing the government denies all knowledge of in this country, but there you go. And I just thought, you know what, I'm just gonna have to bring it. I'm just gonna have to do it, because I knew I'd regret it if I didn't do it. So yeah, what can I say? My kids weren't happy with me for the last few weeks. I've copped it a lot because it went from mum being quite available at home, you know, facilitating, to daddy being there a bit more, and having to sort of do stuff and sort of busy. They're not used to seeing working mummy. This is the problem anymore, which is sad really, because that's actually, you know, something that I really like to role model, that's a normal thing. So it's you know, actually it's a good thing, I think, that they witnessed that. So yeah, I just kind of went for it, and I tried to make my many years of networking pay off. My LinkedIn came into play, and I just pummeled it and just sent
So
out lots of it, and then kind of almost that weight of like, who will come back, and thought about, you know, who have I got of like friends of friends, and you know, and all the rest of it. And to be honest, that was, I pulled in one to get in touch with you and get from different angles, Chrissa, as well. With Charlie, that I knew you'd met very recently, and yeah, largely waited for that, I suppose, and then thought, okay, I think I've got something. I'm gonna go forward with it, and went from there really. But I think largely because it is a lot. There's no getting away from it, and I knew from doing it in. I did the Worcester one in 2019. I knew it was a lot of work, and back then we had months. I remember doing sort of all sorts of sort of pre-workshops where we did, like, it was lovely in a way because there was a real build up to it. We had like a community workshop. We did like a come and do your own placards workshop, and like building the next generation of activists. Um, and but this one, I knew it was going to be a quick one, and it was a lot, but nonetheless, much like you alluded to, Chrissa, when you were there on the day, you know that it's all worth it, because you know, and the strength of feeling, I think it was palpable. So that's kind of what makes it worth it. And then also, not, I mean, again, bearing in mind a lot of the speakers either have a connection to the SEND world or have their own children that have SEND needs. We had a little wobble from one particular person just because life happens, but not one speaker didn't come, which also sort of showed, you know, considering we had a lot there, the strength of feeling and the real dedication to the cause. So no, it was, I would make the same decision over and over again, even though, boy, am I feeling it now. But you know, nonetheless, it was amazing and lovely as well for us all to come together. And I remember, as Chris Law from Spaghetti Bridge said, he enjoyed not being the only radical one there.
yeah, feeling good company.
Yeah.
And I think that unity, and you know, I said this in my speech on Saturday, we have to stick together, because over the years, you know, I've been doing this a really long time now, and I've been a SEND parent for nearly 25 years. So we've been doing it a while. And one of the things I notice is this, we have this bitterness and grief and trauma and stress and all these really big, overwhelming things happening. And what typically happens is we start to turn on each other. And I've seen it happen so many times. And I really hate it. And I think that no matter what other things you might disagree with, we all agree on this, that we cannot allow the SEND white paper to go through. So we have to almost put all our differences aside and come together as a SEND community and remain united, because, you know, one of the things I've spoken about a lot over the last few years is it feels a lot like the post office scandal. And we will have our time. It will have to come out. Somebody will pick this up and run with it. But I think when I've spoken to BBC reporters in the past, and I've said it's really important that we get this information out there, they've said to me, do you know what, Chrissa? It's also heavy with information and technical and legal that it doesn't make it easy to basically report on.
Mm.
I just don't think that's a reason not to report on it. This is
No.
an enormous scandal.
No,
So,
absolutely.
but I, you know, coming to the sort of media stuff, I think that the lack of media attention up and down the country has been quite loud, if you know what I mean, because it felt like a bit of a media blackout. Some of the rallies didn't have any media attention whatsoever. And I just think this is tens of thousands of people rallying all over the country, representing hundreds of thousands, if not, well, millions of people more. You know, I was speaking about DLD in my speech on Saturday, and that's 1.3 children in the UK. 1.3 children. I wish it was 1.3 million children.
Yeah.
So, you know, we're speaking on behalf of millions of people. This is not a small problem, yet the coverage on the media makes me feel like they have an agenda set to them by the government, because whenever I open my news feed on Facebook or whatever, I see a Schools Week or TES article that's basically shaming parents and trying to separate the community. But what we need to remember is teachers and SEND professionals, any sort of pediatric professional, should feel like they're part of that community as well. So we almost, like I say, need to put our differences to one side and remember who is important, the child. So we need to sort of, it just really frustrates me, but I do feel like there is some sort of agenda with
I agree entirely. I think it was so noticeable. I mean, we had a couple of local sort of, didn't we? We had BBC and ITV come down locally, and there was some coverage. And I think there is something to be said. Obviously, it was 2 days after the elections, and it was also a Saturday, which, you know, I don't know if you like, the BBC was like a 5-minute one across the country for local news, which isn't ideal. However, there was just, I mean, why isn't it on the national news? Why isn't, why we, I mean, I think the legacy media, as I've come to sort of hear it's called, like you said, there's largely right wing, I guess, largely, you can't help but feel suspicious about when you do see SEND, it tends to have a narrative to it that's more negative. There isn't much defending what we are. So no, it is crazy, and I can remember the frustration. Actually, personally, I reached out to I'm an avid, first I'm giving a plug, but LBC, because I love listening, you know, all the ranting and all the rest of it. But I reached out to Lewis Goodall as an example, because I knew he's born in Birmingham, and he actually did a thing about Birmingham and the elections, and I thought, oh, maybe you might like the angle. And then I'm listening in on Sunday morning, and he had Bridget Phillipson on his show, and I'm thinking, come on, I emailed you 2 days ago, come on, nothing, not a mention, you know. And you just like, you know, they're just, even the ones that you think might be more understanding, might be more, you know, sort of seeing it, there just doesn't seem to be anything. So
and I find that really frustrating. And as a neurodivergent person, they're almost like dead to me at that point, you know. When they let me down, I'm like, oh well, I gave you the opportunity, you're dead to me now. But yeah, it's beyond frustrating. And we used to have a great BBC reporter in Derby, and he covered everything. If you Google, you know, Chrissa BBC, you'll see at one point I was on there more than he was, I think, on the news, because he was making sure there was coverage, but he would break it down really simplistically for people to understand. And it was all around when we were converting to this law, and they were converting the statements to the EHCPs. But then he went and got promoted, and we just haven't had the coverage, I don't think, that we deserve since. But Natalie, at the rally, obviously we had a chat at the rally, and you collared me, and I'm so glad you did, because one of the things you said to me really struck me, because you said, do you know what, Chrissa, it's a great turnout, but there should be more, because actually there are thousands, well, yeah, we know there's millions of us. Where is everyone? It makes me worried that parents are exhausted. And I think, whilst, yes, there were hundreds of people there, we know it was really busy and it gained traction and it was great. It just got busier and busier. We know that there should have been thousands more that should have been there. But, you know, you said to me, they're tired, they're burnt out, they're fatigued by all of this. And they're wondering whether they can actually make a difference at all. Can you talk to us a bit about that? Because I know you're really passionate about this.
Yeah, I think that was the key thing for me. I kind of looked around, and it was brilliant. And I have to say the speakers were amazing. Tracy, you know, again, it was absolutely incredible. It was really good. I actually found it incredibly moving, actually, listening to some, because every story, every person that kind of got up and spoke about, especially their personal lived experience and why they were there, you know, was choking. You know, it was literally, it was so relatable. And I think that was really key, and I think it was great. But I did kind of go, you know, where is everybody? But then I kind of think about all the conversations I've had with even like friends, with children with SEND, and you know, I've sort of said, you know, if you filled out the consultation, oh well, you know, I'm in the thick of dealing with the EHCP annual review, or you know, I'm just really tired, or
It's a
and I
perfect
feel
storm,
like I'm
isn't it?
kind of,
It's for the government. It's
yeah,
because
I'm
we're
kind
all
of like henpecking everybody, going, have you done it? Have you done it? And they're gonna like unfriend on Facebook. Um, but I think the general consensus, and I feel it, you know, we had this conversation, I think, before we started, you know, I would say I'm a fairly kind of level-headed, intelligent human being. And even this, I'm just finding it so overwhelming, like not knowing where to start. Every time I read something. And what I found as well from a social media perspective, it's quite interesting that I would open up, say, my Facebook page, and I'd have a DFE video with Bridget or Georgia, and everybody would be laughing and smiling, and I'd be thinking, why am I feeling so panicked and kind of stressed out and worried about it when the images that they're portraying are ones of kind of elation and joy, again, I kind of found that I was in my own head, I was kind of thinking, should I be thinking this is a good do you know what I mean? And then I'd deep delve into a bit more about or I'd read more about the consultation, or on the consultation, and I'd be like, I don't understand why these people seem, and then I'd see like the MPs saying what a wonderful, you know, wonderful that this all is, and they're ploughing X amount of billions in, and I'm thinking, but the maths just isn't mathing. I don't understand. I mean, I won't go into it, but you know, the experts at hand, you know, that already exists for a lot of schools, and they buy into services, and generally then the schools have to decide who is deserving. I don't like, but do you know what I mean? They have to then divvy that funding out. I just can't see how these things are any better than what we've already got. And I'll be really honest, EHCPs work. They are great documents. I don't know who they've spoken to that have said that EHCPs are rubbish and they need to go. Because I think, yes, there are a lot of stumbling blocks or obstacles, putting it politely, in the way initially. But once you get your document and it's written accurately, and the input from the right people is shared within that document, they are such valuable pieces of information. Mine very much reflects my child as he is now. And I know that there are ever evolving documents. And I think, you know, if I compare it to, say, my first one versus my one now, they are literally chalk and cheese. But also developmentally, my son has changed over that period of time, not just the needs that he required, you know, provision and needs, but I think they're fabulous pieces of information. And the point is, they're ring fenced.
Yeah.
So, you know, if we're not happy with something within that plan, we have a route where we can make it better, or make it more accurate, or make it more specified. So, I yeah,
Yeah,
it's a lot. And
it
so I
is a
think
lot.
parents are just, they're up to here. And I think it's those mixed messages. I don't think that's helped. I think the drip feeding in the before it was actually released was frightening. And I think we were all kind of panicked. And then I think we were made to feel that we were, the people that were drip feeding and releasing that information were kind of villainized, that they were frightening all SEND parents, and what are they doing? So then you start to go, oh, you know, should I believe that then? You know, should I be listening to that? I think there's been a real cross of information that
Yeah.
has made us become actually very wary of where the information is coming from. And then don't even get me started on the consultation and the appendices, because that in itself is an absolute minefield.
Not accessible. And I
No,
think
no,
they drip fed those information for months and months and months.
yeah.
If you remember that Christine Lenehan stuff, that's where it all started on that stage. And I remember at the time doing tons of content going, right, everybody just calm down, because Yes, take note, write it down, document what's been said so you can come back to it. But right now, we have nothing solid to fight. So don't go fighting, don't go starting petitions. You're going to exhaust yourselves before we get to the point. And this is what I was trying to warn people about, because now we need their energy. They've spent it all because they spent it on those initial comments and whipping themselves up, and then the industry or industry community all turning on itself. Oh, she said this and she said that. Well, I think she's like, just chill out because nothing's been said yet. And then of course they've preyed on this. It is a tactic that they do. This is all being planned meticulously by these people. They're not stupid, because now
it's like a propaganda campaign, to be honest, isn't it?
Yeah.
it really is. It really is.
And I think even if you do calm down, you're still absorbing that information. A few times I actually thought I'm going to have to come off social media because I was just finding it so conflicting emotionally. And then on top of our day-to-day lives, it compounds, doesn't it?
100%.
So when I speak to people and they say, we didn't make it to the rally, or, we haven't filled out the consultation yet, I can see why, because I say we are all completely, tired, exhausted, overwhelmed, at full capacity of what more we can kind of take. And I think the questions are incredibly confusing, that if you haven't read the appendices, how can you actually answer the question? I think that, again, is a very clever tactic. I think the documents are embedded in so much language that actually to get the truth out of them is incredibly difficult. And
it's political talk. We've seen it.
Yeah.
That video that came out, I think it was yesterday or the day before, where a send professional, a send expert, it said to Bridget, asked her a question, and it's on the phone, and it's all scripted.
Yeah.
It's all scripted. It's not a natural conversation. And then she goes back with, and then doesn't answer the question, but also says to us things like, well, which we'll come on to. She'll talk about the targeted and targeted plus. And we'll come back to that in a second, but you just sort of like, you're not answering the question. That's what I hate about politics, is that they think they're clever, but actually they're talking to a largely neurodivergent community, by the way. Nothing gets past us because we pick everything apart because we're suspicious of everything. So I think, it's offensive, actually, a lot of the stuff that's happening, that they think that we can't see through it. And these fake videos, I'm calling them fake videos. I'm sure that they're real, but when they're videoing people laughing, that's when they're just sitting down, getting their cup of tea and seeing their friends. It's not that they're laughing with Bridget Phillips going, ha, 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 there's no worries here. This all sounds delightful. I want my child to have no legally binding provision. Great stuff. Nobody's sitting there doing that, but that's how they're making it look.
They twist stuff though as well, don't they? They take something you say and then turn it around and make it as if that's what you've meant by it, like the tribunals or something. Why would we want to go to a tribunal? Well, of course not, but we still want it. We still want that choice.
We need that. Actually, this brings me quite nicely on to your meeting on Monday, Tracy, with Bridget herself. Tell us more.
Well, I went to one of the DFE consultation events, and yeah, it was an experience, the most inaccessible event you could think going. Just to I emailed twice about sort of parking nearby because I'm a blue badge holder and various different things. No answer at all. And then you get in the room and it's noisy and busy and crammed in, and also all the things that you think, well, this really sets the scene for the reforms. So we went through the process where there was a group of us there, and we did sport our t-shirts of Save Our Children's Rights, so perhaps we kind of gave it away a bit, but we were very much being managed. We had a disproportionate amount of Christine Lenihan's time. I think she popped up on our table a lot. So all that was kind of going on, and according to the program that we were very much told to keep on track with, the Secretary of State was supposed to be there to do like a keynote at the beginning. That didn't happen, and she sort of snuck in towards the end and went straight on to some of the tables, and then it was very sort of scripted, as I think she's done some of it's been put out in the press and social media. And I have to say, one of the my friends, Liz, that came with us as well, actually said in person she was a little bit more believable. I mean, you know, we don't buy what she's saying, but there was a bit more of a genuineness to what you see on some of these videos. So anyway, it was all very swift with her. It was she didn't really say much, of course, didn't take questions, and so the event finished, and yeah, we were sort of just hanging around saying our goodbyes, and we glanced over to the corner and noticed that she was obviously going to, you know, do one of our videos. You know, I had that moment of like, I've got to do it, haven't I? I've got to go over. So yeah, when asked to speak to her, and yeah, her assistant, you know, you could immediately sort of think, oh, what's going on here? Probably the t-shirt again, I guess. And it was really funny because the photograph that one of the friends took, you can literally see her looking at my t-shirt. So, but my basic question, because I thought I've got probably 2 minutes before they get rid of me, let's face it. So I thought I've got to sort of think of something snappy. I sort of acknowledged without putting her on the spot about the current situation with the Prime Minister and leadership and everything. But for the point of, nobody knows the future. Nobody knows who's going to be in number 10. Nobody knows probably next week, to be honest, let alone in 2.5 years when we might have a completely different government. So even putting aside right now, what happens if we get a new leader, a new government, and they don't really think much of send? They don't think that, they do think it's overdiagnosed, or they think that they don't really want to put as much money in, you know, but the budgets are tight these days. They don't, you know, then what? And we haven't got that legal backing anymore. So then what do we do? And you know, admittedly, she's, you know, there wasn't much sort of going on in the facial thing to read her, but she's just, you know, the typical politics line of, I'll take that away and I'll have a think about it.
Have a think about why she thought about that already. I
I
mean,
know.
you know, the particular party, we won't name names, who don't like anybody who's
No,
particularly
exactly.
or less than, because they're a drain.
Yeah.
And so why is that something that she's only now thinking
Exactly.
about?
Well, I just thought, out of everything else, because she obviously thinks she's right about everything else. So I thought, you know, if nothing else, I'll try. If there is any sense of a moral compass in there, or any sort of care about vulnerable people, or, you know, surely she knows that then as well, that's beyond her control, and she doesn't want to set us all up to to fall down the biggest hole going. So yeah, so I mean, you know, I tried my luck, and then it was like, yeah, I was ushered away. And
No, what you've just said there, Tracy, you know, she's come in late. She didn't do what she said she was going to do. She's come in late. Photo opportunities is what she's had. Okay, not listening to anyone. I need to be photographed with these people. I'll say something funny, they laugh back. And then we've got a great photo of me looking like I've gained the trust and
absolutely,
the
it's
belief.
exactly what it looked like as well. Yeah.
So actually, the big question for us was, who is she listening to? Well, it's nobody, because she's not actually there long enough to use their ears.
No. Well, it was interesting speaking to someone else who went to one earlier on, and apparently she was present all the way through at that point as well. So, you know, it did almost, it felt very tokenistic, and it felt disrespectful, yeah, to be quite honest. I mean, even down to, we were joking with that they give you a QR code at the end where you can look at the photos they've taken from the day. Wow. So that we can share them on social media. And basically there was, you would have thought none of us were there. Very conveniently, there was lots of people, you know, and you know, we were spread around.
Yeah, I can't imagine them putting your logo front and center. You know, you save our children's legal rights. But you know, one of the things that Kathy from the Autistic Girls Network, she got up on the stage at the rally on the weekend, and she said that this isn't a case of what's nice and what's not nice. This is a case of life or death. Children are losing their lives because of the trauma that they've been put through. Like, we have to bring it back to the seriousness of that, because what they're not realizing is, whilst they're, you know, earning their big salaries, wearing their fancy suits, having their drivers drive them to the next event where all they have to do is walk in and have their pictures taken and take away what you've asked them, not answer any questions. Whilst they're doing that, there's a huge community nursing their children through significant physical and mental health problems, and children are losing their lives. And I think they've lost sight of that. This is really life or death. And I've not seen the widespread support for weakening the tribunal powers or reducing legal accountability like they're making out. It's interesting that these events are all sort of, it is propaganda. They're making it seem like, wow, you know, look, everybody's on our side. And then you've got Georgia Gould this week, who has apparently said the families don't want tribunals anymore. Because they're the problem. I've not met a single family who say they want to remove the legal ramifications or the legal accountability. They're saying it's stressful, and we should, I'm sorry if you can hear anything. Every time I do a Facebook Live, somebody decides to do gardening or drilling outside my office window. So I'm really sorry if you can hear that. But I've not met anybody online or in person who agrees with what the Send white paper is actually suggesting. And I think that disconnection really blooming matters, because it like I said, it's propaganda.
What's really hard, I think, I really relate to this, like with the support groups, and I feel horrible being the one to do it, but I feel like when you get those, you know, the parents who walk through the door for the first time, and then they're the sort of early ones, and you feel like almost your role as a sort of veteran Send parent is to tell them how it is to actually no one's going to come to save you, I'm afraid. No, this is it. We're going to help you as much as we can, but I'm afraid those people who you think in society, in roles, you know, that actually you think are there to help you, they're probably not. There might be the odd good egg, but on the whole, you know, this is it. And in the same way, I feel like I'm having to sort of peddle the same message with the government now, because I mean, you know, I'll be honest, I'm past left-leaning, you know, politically. I was very politically, probably there was the neurodivergence as a teenager, but I was very politically aware. And this, I won't name names, but I had a conversation with a local MP, who's a government MP, and I actually used the word, I feel betrayed. I feel utterly betrayed. And I was told that I can't feel like that. But anyway, we won't go into detail. That I just basically said, well, that's how I feel, because this is not what I would expect, and the general sort of the messaging that's misleading, and it does feel like propaganda. I mean, you know, we're sort of in the era of what we're viewing in America now, and everything else. I wanted this country to be different. I didn't want this sort of thing. It feels like, I mean, you know, it might not be to the same scale, but it's just not right. It really, you know.
You know, it has to start somewhere, and I think it's starting now.
Yeah.
Because something else I read yesterday was the whole parent care forum thing, because in fact, I don't think it was yesterday, I think it was last week. I've read that much. We're always being fed all this information. But the parent carer forum, so for those watching, you know, every area should have a parent carer forum, and they're often referred to as PCFs, or sometimes they have their own names. But the idea behind them is a really positive thing. However, if they worked effectively, we wouldn't have our support groups that we've got. So, you know, there's a question mark there. But anyway, back to what I'm about to say. They are meant to represent the voices of the families, and they're meant to work collaboratively with local authorities around Send policy, planning, co-production, that kind of thing. And some parent carer forums do this exceptionally well. Like, for instance, I don't know whether you've come across the Shropshire PAC, parent carer, parents and carers. I can't remember what the PAC bit stands for, but I love what they represent. And yeah, I think they're absolutely great. I sat on a panel with one of their leaders a few months ago at the NAIDEX conference, and they really do amplify the voices of the parent carers and the families. And I know there are others like Shropshire, but Shropshire in particular are really fiercely independent. They refuse that connection with the council in terms of like accepting funding and things like that. And, you know, they advocate brilliantly for families. They challenge the systems. But there are now growing concerns nationally around parent care forums and whether they're actually able to truly operate independently, which is something I have raised locally here for at least 10 years, because they sit in the same office as them, they accept the funding from them.
Exactly.
Yeah. They're all on the same page and they roll their eyes at me. And I find it painful, because then I've got to come out of there and know that they're the people who are, you know, providing support and that initial guidance, because they're advertised as where people need to go. Now, one thing that's caught my attention recently is shared through Contact around the parent carer for campaigning. And some of the guidance that they've given out basically suggests that the forums should avoid campaigning, which makes me wonder whether that might be another reason why numbers are low, because they're actively encouraging people to, well, let's try and work with the local authorities, because they're worried that being in opposition to the local authorities could damage relationships. But I think I understand, I think, what they're trying to say, but how I read it in my position within the SEND community, whether that's professional or as a mum, is that they're silencing parents in favour for keeping the LAs on side. But to me, that's not in the best interest of the kids.
And I think it's working. So that's the hard thing. I mean, you know, again, we years and years ago, so this is going back before the 2019 demos, I was invited to sort of join the Parent Care Forum and sat on there, and, and then as soon as I started campaigning in my own name, got told to leave. And so, you know, it's been going on informally for years, but they really were quite blatant with it, with that document. And again, I don't, you know, I've got friends that, you know, are sort of part of it locally, and I feel for them, because the conflict of interest is massive. It's just a flawed idea, I think. Like you say, if you take money from them, how do you not, you know, it's natural, isn't it? You're going to feel some level of responsibility there. So I think, and it's really quite depressing, to be honest, to read in the white paper that basically they're just going to get more and more funds, and they're going to get, you know, and actually they're not represented, they're not able to, they're not independent enough. Like you said, there are good ones that you know, really sort of strive for that independence, but on the whole, I think the whole sort of model is flawed.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. And I think it is adding to the silence. Well, and to me, I'm similar to you in the fact that when it comes to my kids, nobody's going to silence me. That's why I'm here. I just can't, no policy within a parent care forum, if I was a member of it, I'd be straight out of there.
Exactly.
So, like you. So, you know, like I said, we could go through all of the worries that we've got about the SEND white paper, but one of my big concerning things now, and Natalie, I know you're really, really passionate about this, so I want to come to it, is we need to fill in that consultation. But the appendix is lengthy. Nobody's got the time to read that. And if you're neurodivergent, you haven't got the patience. If you're dyslexic, you're just not going to get to it. It's not accessible. So again, Tracy, you saying, you know, about the events not being accessible, it's just screaming. They don't understand what they're consulting on, which is a bigger kick in the teeth. Now, I know there's been many people shared with me, well, I've put the appendices into AI and I've told it to summarize it for me. That's quite useful. And told it specifically, don't look anywhere else, just look there and tell me what I need to know. Because, and one of the things I want to say to parents is, if you have Chat GPT or something on your phone, speak to it. Don't type your instruction to it, speak to it, because you can fit far more of your voice into that and it will tell you a better story, basically guided by your true voice. So go into your AI and say, I'm a parent, you know, don't give details away because chat does share details, all right? So don't give specific details about your family, but I am a parent of a child with additional needs. The government is trying to change the law. This is what they're trying to do. They're asking me for my feedback. Give as much information about why you are particularly passionate about this, and then put the appendices in and ask it to give you from the appendices the bits you need to be looking at so that you are at least summarizing. It's better than nothing, is what I'm saying. If the choice is not doing it or doing that, give it a go. Also, us neurodivergent lot, we love a gimmick, so give it a go. But the appendices are long. There's 39 questions. And there's so much to think about. And I know that you can save as you go along, but even, I mean, for me, I've done it several times when I've had a snippet of time because it's so lengthy. And I've gone, right, I'll update this bit. The first 10 questions are just like about you, email address, stuff like that. And then it goes into the juicy stuff. But you have to really think about it. But this is where perhaps AI might be able to help you as well, to be able to at least submit it. It's better than not doing it, is what I'm saying. But Natalie, talk to us about that, because I know you're so passionate about this, but you do have some hacks as well with regards to other ways of getting information across.
Yeah. So, I mean, you're better off completing part of it. So at least answer a couple of the questions. The ones that perhaps you deem are more applicable to you versus others. There's kind of key ones. So questions 15 and 16 relate to the ISPs, which is what they're proposing over and above the EHCPs. That again is it's worth putting in some information in there. Questions 22 and 23 relate to specialist provision packages and EHCP changes. So again, perhaps concentrate on those ones if you've already got an EHCP, what works, you know, what the reasons why you want it to remain that way. Question 20, and I'm going a bit over the place, but question 20 is experts at hand. So again, kind of understanding it's about what they're talking about doing is upskilling teachers rather than actually having those professionals in place to support your children. 18 and 19 about inclusion bases. So again, within mainstream schools. So again, if you've got your worries or concerns over those, that's the place to put them. 26 and 27 and 38 are all to do with kind of complaints, school choices, tribunals, that kind of stuff. And then question 39, which is the last one, is probably the most important question. And I would say, actually, if you're going to put anything in there, that is probably where I do it. The little kind of caveat there is there, though, is they've restricted each box to 1,500 characters. So you are very limited on what you can actually put in. And that's where I would say ChatGPT or any sort of AI would be useful. If you literally say, these are all my concerns, blah, 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 either vocally put them in or type them in, either or. And then say to it, it needs to be within 1,500 characters. It will help without losing, I would always put without losing the importance. And then get it to then kind of condense what you're wanting to say. But this is where you can raise concerns about reduced tribunal powers, weakening EHCPs, lack of accountability, concerns around AI and data sharing. That's something we haven't even covered, but that's heavily in the consultation. Loss of specialist provision, lack of workforce, so that's the experts at hand, and children being failed by standardized packaging. So I would do that. One key thing that I will tell you to go and do, there is a wonderful lady, and she's got to have some credit here, called Rachel Filmer. So if you look for her, it's Send Rights Alliance, Rachel Filmer. She's on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Now, what I did to help myself was on her YouTube, you can actually go on a YouTube video and get the transcript of what she's saying. I then copied that and put that into an AI. You know, it was ChatGPT, but I don't know if we're allowed to advertise them. And then it broke it down for me, so I could really see. And so I kind of asked it to give me examples of what I could be using from my voice in that response. Brilliant. So I would say, again, do that, but I would prioritize certain questions. Don't exhaust yourselves over doing all of them. Something is better than nothing. I think the government are planning on using AI anyway to go through the consultation. So I kind of feel that if we're all saying the same thing, then it's going to hopefully pull that information out. The other quick thing, because I know we're running out of time, if you really feel like you cannot fill out the consultation in that format, the government have an email address that you can actually email them with, which I'll just very quickly say, it's sendreform.consultation@education.gov.uk. Hopefully someone in the chat will perhaps put that in there for someone to access. And another kind of mention, not that I'm dropping names, but I also follow Michael Charles from Sinclair Law. He's also said this week that he is going to do kind of an attachment that we can attach with our response. I don't think we'll be able to do that through the consultation, but we certainly will be able to do that via email. So do we go a two-pronged attempt? Do we fill out the odd questions we want in the consultation and send an email with Michael Charles's document? I don't know if that's an idea. I just want, if I can urge people to just do what they can. You know, it's so tricky, and I fully understand that time is of the essence and we are exhausted. I'm exhausted, but I feel that if we don't respond, they are taking our silence as acceptance, that we're okay with it. And I think it's really important, even if you just answer question 39 and you put all of your concerns into that, I think that's better than not doing anything at all.
Absolutely. And the consultation is open until the 18th.
Yeah.
So those who love working up against deadlines, this is your cue. Go for it. Make a start now, because if you want to complete all of them, you're going to make a start now. You need to make a start now because it is a lengthy form, but there's lots of hacks there. What we're also going to publish as well on the Sunshine Support website is our response as an organisation. So if you want to pinch some of that, then you can, and rewrite it yourself or rewrite it in your own chat or Copilot or whatever it is that you use, then you can use that, because you'll see the bits that we are finding important, which might not be what you find important, but I think generally speaking, listening to people, I think we've got a kind of a good handle. And one of the things I want to highlight before we go is, we're kind of told that if your child is year 3 or above, these changes are probably not going to affect them. However, we don't believe that, because we don't believe anything that the government says anymore, because they've fooled us too many times. We're a bit too long in the tooth. So don't assume that if your child is older than age 7, that you're going to be okay and you don't need to campaign and you don't need to submit the consultation. Please do it. Even if it doesn't affect your child, think about kids like your child who are younger, who haven't been identified. They might not even be born yet. So, you know, the fact that the government have done this is very clever, because what they're essentially saying is, if your child is age 6 or below, you're probably not going to even know they've got additional needs yet. You know, I think only one of mine was identified at age 5. The rest were identified later on, particularly when it's neurodevelopmental. So yeah, physical is very different. But we know those with neurodivergence are the ones that are going to be targeted first, because it's harder to get them help, because they are cognitively able and they do mask and fawn in school and we can't see their difficulties. We know all of this. But, you know, school avoidance, school non-attendance is a massive problem. And that is because needs aren't being met in school. And I can only see that getting worse. So I don't know how they're going to manage this, because they've put the schools and wellbeing bill in, you know, and that, oh my God, that's another Facebook Live right there, in the fact that that is really targeting those children who can't attend or perhaps are home educated. And if they're going to take our rights away to things like a more straightforward EOTAS package, for instance, you know, it really, really, when you look at all of this, it really muddies the waters. So I think it's really important that everybody, whether you have a child with SEND, whether you're not a parent yet, but you're passionate about this, you're feeling the emotion that we're hopefully bringing this morning and the concern, maybe you're a professional, maybe whoever you are, please get involved and save our children's rights, because right now it's looking quite bleak and very, very worrying. You have until the 18th. If you need the link, we can share the link, just comment, but it will also be in the post that we share. So once this video has gone live, the link will be in the post as well. So ladies, we've come to the end. We could carry on. I mean, we could do another 5 of these. I think that we probably need to get a podcast going to have a discussion about this. So if you're up for that, then I'm up for that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being with me this morning. I think it's been really brilliant to see different points of view and from different parts of the country, because I think so many people think, oh, this is just a local problem. It's not, it's across the country, it's all of England. So, and seeing the state of play in Wales and what they did there, and I've got it on good word that they like that model. It's atrocious. What they've done over there is ruined it. And I'm from Wales. I've got a lot of family, a lot of friends there. They have ruined the SEND system, which is now called ALN over there. So we don't want that. But of course, it's all about money, isn't it? So thank you so much for being here this morning. I will drop you a message now. We're going to get a podcast on the go. I just know it's the longest podcast in the world because we feel very stifled by the hour, don't we? Thank you both so much, and I will see you very soon.
Thank you.
You're welcome.